Good morning. So good to see all of you here this morning. I'm Reverend Kim. My pronouns are she and her, and I serve as minister for UUFN. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid. We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyful. We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith, who come to probe and explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome, who enter this place as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who find in these people a family. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. Come, let us worship together.
As we light this flame, may we hear what it has to say. Come back to your center, it calls. Return to the quiet, it whispers. The quiet we long for and that longs for us. From this stillness, always a voice arises as we let it. So come, friends, let us listen once again. Let us find that flame inside that guides us back home.
And let's be now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. And this comes from Howard Thurman from Meditations of the Heart. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Over and over, the questions beat in upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. May it be so.
And now a reading from Mark Nepo, 7,000 Ways to Listen. I was drawn to write about listening without knowing that my hearing was breaking down. This holds a great lesson about a deeper kind of listening, for something deep was calling, drawing me to explore different ways of being. Life was offering me a chance to realign myself with the world. When I say something deep was calling, I'm referring to that element that lives in our center, which overlaps with the essence of life itself. Like an inner sun, this common center has a spiritual gravity that pulls us to it. This unending pull to center may be our greatest teacher. It shows us a way forward by warming our hearts open despite our fears. The question under all of this is, how do we listen to and stay in conversation with all that is beyond our awareness? Many aspects of living continually bring us into this conversation. Curiosity, pain, wonder, loss, beauty, truth, confusion, and fresh experience, to name a few. The way we think and feel and sense our way into all we don't know is the art of intuition. It is an art of discovery. To intuit means to look upon, to instruct from within, to understand or learn by instinct. And instinct is a deep form of listening that, when trusted, can return us to the common, irrepressible element of the center of all life, and to the oneness of things that surround us.
Every once in a while, someone will ask me about my call to ministry, how that came about. Every minister has a different story, and I find it interesting to hear those stories. For some, their call comes as a flash of insight. Some hear the call and they ignore it for a while, sometimes for years. For others, like me, it came after a long struggle. I had just given birth to my second child, a healthy baby boy, and I had so much to be grateful for. 2 beautiful children, a loving husband who was a musician, but his work did make it possible for me to stay home and be a full-time mom to the kids. A house in the country with lots of gardens. I had plans to homeschool the kids, grow our own fruits and vegetables, and do freelance writing on the side. My life was all mapped out, or so I thought. But in the first weeks and months of my son's life, even though I should have been happy with my circumstances, I wasn't. I had a beautiful life, but I just wasn't enjoying it. Almost a year later, I learned from my doctor that I'd probably been suffering from postpartum depression, but I didn't know that then. All I knew was that something seemed to be missing, and I tortured myself trying to figure out what it was. Mark Nepo writes in his book, 7,000 Ways to Listen, that it's when we lose our map, when we lose possession of what we thought were answers, that we've begun the real journey. We're left to accept that we're not in control. Well, I didn't understand this back then. I thought it was my job to be in control of my life, to make decisions about how I wanted my life to be and to follow through on those plans. I'd lost my map, and I didn't know what to do about it. Questions swirled in my mind, questions like the ones Howard Thurman posed in our meditation. What am I doing with my life? Where am I going? After months of living with the weight of depression, one day I asked myself a question that was more specific. What could I do with my life where at the end I could look back and say, yes, that was the most meaningful way I could have spent my time here on earth? And it's not that my life had no meaning, but I just felt there was something more that I was meant to do. And the answer came to me, finally, as a still, small voice. And it was very clear. I want to help people on their spiritual journeys. And I'll always be grateful to the women ministers who served the UU congregation where I was a member, because they served as role models. So it came to me, I could become a minister. That's the most meaningful way I could imagine spending my life. As I look back now, I know it was my intuition speaking. Finally, I'd been in the wilderness of not knowing where I was going for a long time. And what made it worse, I think, is that I didn't know that my intuition was there, somewhere in the background, waiting for me to hear what it had to say. I kept thinking I had to use my rational mind to solve my crisis of the spirit. Our dominant culture emphasizes the development of our rational minds, and it hardly acknowledges the existence or the validity of our intuitive side. We're taught to ignore the still, small voice inside us. Each of us has this inner wisdom, but we learn to distrust it. In Shakti Gawain's book, Developing Intuition, she writes, "Many people imagine that our intuition is a mysterious force that would come to them through some transcendent mystical experience. In fact, our intuition is a very practical, down-to-earth tool that's always available to help us deal with the decisions, problems, and challenges of our daily lives." Gawain tells us that a friend of hers admits that when she ignores her intuition, she ends up doing things that don't work very well or aren't good for her. This woman says, "The more I follow my inner wisdom, the better I am able to take care of myself, and the more things just fall into place." Our intuition is our higher self. It's our deepest wisdom speaking to us. It's the part of us that always has our best interests at heart. You may know it as the God or goddess within, your higher power, or the voice of the universe. It tells us what feels right and true for us. We may each define it differently, but we all have it, and that voice is ours alone. And we can learn to trust it and to listen to it. In indigenous cultures that still practice traditional ways, intuition is highly valued and respected. It's been this way for thousands of years, and it's the way all humans have been until relatively recently. A sense of connection to the universal creative force, including all of nature and everything of the earth and sky, a sense of connection to this creative impulse guides every moment of daily life in these societies. They practice powerful rituals that support and enhance their connection to the intuitive realm. People trust and follow their own sense of inner truth and share their wisdom and insight with others in the community. For those of us who've been raised in Western culture, this orientation's hard for many of us to even imagine. That's because from a young age we learn to respect, honor, and develop the rational aspect of our nature and mostly discount the intuitive side. Our rational minds are valuable, of course, but as Gawain points out, our rational side can only operate on the basis of the knowledge we've gained through our five senses. She goes on, "Many of us have programmed our intellect to doubt our intuition. When an intuitive feeling arises, our rational minds immediately say, 'Oh, I don't think that will work,' or 'what a foolish idea,' and the intuition is disregarded. We must train our intellect to respect, listen to, and express the intuitive voice." End quote. We sometimes associate intuition with huge, life-altering insights like the need to change careers, or Edison's dream about the light bulb filament, or sewing machine Isaac Howe's dream of placing the hole in the needle at the pointy end. When we begin to listen more deeply to our intuitive voice, we find that we have access to guidance and wisdom for the small, day-to-day choices, as well as the big decisions we sometimes have to make or the problems we need to solve. One of the main obstacles for most of us in learning to listen to our intuition is that we don't trust our intuitive voice. From an early age, we're taught to accommodate those around us, to follow rules of behavior, to suppress our natural impulses and do what's expected of us. We learn to look for answers from outside authorities rather than going inward and listening to what our inner voice is telling us. And those outside authorities are everywhere. As children, there are parents and grandparents, older siblings, teachers, religious instructors, scriptures, and God as Lord, the ultimate authority figure. Later on, we look to our peer group and our community values and norms. Society tells us to trust only the experts, the medical professionals, scientists, book authors, and so on. Our friends and family influence us with their opinions and expectations, their approval or disapproval, their encouragement or discouragement. We come to believe that life's answers lie somewhere outside ourselves, says Gawain, and we develop a lifelong habit of looking to others. We think that somebody else knows better than we do about what's true for us. End quote. 200 years ago, a blind allegiance to authority is exactly what the Transcendentalists in Boston gathered to discuss. These young Unitarians rejected what they saw as the mind-numbing conformity of Boston's elite. Every individual could find the deepest insights, they believed, not by deferring to outside authority and cultural norms, but by listening to their own intuition. Influenced by new philosophical voices in Europe, these men and women recognized that they needed to rely not on reason and rational thinking, but on intuition to find what was true and meaningful for them. Trust thyself, wrote the most prominent of the Transcendentalists, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Based on their own direct experience, allowing their intuitive sense to develop, these Transcendentalists found that God is inherently present in both humanity and in nature. It's as if they were, in a way, archaeologists of the human spirit, excavating and reclaiming some of their ancestors' spiritual wisdom, the intuitive orientation to the world that Western culture had snuffed out along the way. The Transcendentalist thread of our Unitarian Universalist history is important for us to remember and lift up. It was they who declared that we each have the right to our own personal spiritual insights. This was an incredibly radical idea at the time. It went completely against a society built on conformity. And today, this right to personal spiritual insight is a given in Unitarian Universalism. They also taught us that we need to value our intuition. We sometimes focus on the part of our UU tradition which encourages us to value our rational side and the use of reason. And that's important, but let's keep before us the Transcendentalist reminder about listening to our intuition. Because our intuition is how we develop our spiritual wisdom. It's how we gain personal insight. It's how we recognize our deep connections to the natural world and the whole web of existence. Our intuitive side is as essential to our spirituality as our rational side is. Some of us are very much in touch with our intuitive side, but for the rest of us, how can we best develop our intuition? How can we become archaeologists of our own spirits, excavating and lovingly restoring our neglected intuitive nature? There are many different ways to go about it. Spending time in nature is key for some, as it was for many of the Transcendentalists. I think it can be helpful to start by learning to recognize our intuitive voice when we hear it. Gawain says that our intuitive self has a unique energy or feeling, and we can learn to distinguish it from all the other voices inside us. She adds that many of our other voices seem to be located primarily in our head, whereas our intuitive feelings usually seem to come through a deeper place in our bodies, end quote. This is why some people talk about having a gut feeling about something. Others will say that their heart is speaking to them. The Indian mystic and poet Kabir spoke of the intuitive wisdom of the heart in this way. Near your breastbone there is an open flower. Drink the honey that is all around that flower. In my own experience, I know when my voice of intuition is speaking because it seems to be so clear and pure. There's a sort of peaceful silence that surrounds it, like everything else stops for a moment. Where it is in my body usually isn't specific, but I know it when I hear it. It's the truth, it's wise, and it's what I need to hear. In order to develop our intuitive nature, we need to adopt the habit of going deeper. And what do I mean by this? We need to anchor ourselves in the present moment as much as possible by practicing mindfulness. When we're present, we observe more. We take in so much more of life. And it opens us up to listening more to what's inside us. And not only does this presence help us listen for our intuitive voice, but we may hear a lot of other interesting things we never noticed before. Things that our intuition can help us with. Something I've recently noticed. When I'm learning how to do something new or figuring out the solution to a little problem I have to deal with, like every day, right? So I'll often imagine that I'm asking an expert for advice about the best way to do it. I now recognize this is a lifelong habit of not trusting myself, of automatically wanting to turn to an outside authority, of believing that someone else will know the best answer for me. And sometimes we do need someone else's expertise. I love YouTube for learning how to do things, but many times we don't need outside help. We just need to listen to our own deepest wisdom. And as I listen for my intuitive voice, it encourages me to trust myself, and to trust my capabilities, to figure out what works best for me. As we learn to trust in ourselves more, we'll naturally pay more attention to our intuitive voice, and it will guide us toward a solution that works best for us. Maybe a creative approach we hadn't considered before. The Transcendentalists also practiced contemplation, a stilling of the mind. Contemplation and meditation, which is often defined as a focusing of the mind, they can both be very helpful ways to develop our ability to hear that intuitive voice. Whenever we quiet the chatter in our mind, we naturally have access to our intuitive guidance. Gawain suggests a simple meditation specifically to develop this access. When our mind is quiet, we can ask ourselves, what do I most need to remember or be aware of right now? Or we can use any question that works for us. Many people, she says, find that a thought or a feeling and or an image comes to them when they ask a question. What comes is immediately helpful. And she encourages us to trust whatever's happening and not worry about whether we're doing it right. Most important in developing our intuition is that we need to trust ourselves. The wisdom we need, our wisdom, will come to us. This wisdom, the wisdom of the spirit of life and love, of the God or goddess within, the wisdom of the universe. There are many names, but this wisdom that comes from our intuition is sacred, and it is beautiful, and it is ours. For me, today, it's a little bittersweet to be reflecting on my call to ministry as I come close to retirement. One thing about ministers, though, is that we may retire, but ministry is a calling, and so we never stop being ministers. My mentor, the Reverend Carol Taylor, during my ordination almost exactly 24 years ago, asked me if I was ready to put on the mantle of professional ministry, because once I put it on, I would never be able to take it off. Well, of course I said yes, but she was right. I can't take it off. So I guess I'm lost right now in the way that Mark Nepo describes it. I have no map for my future. I don't know what ministry will mean for me in the coming years, and this is something that a lot of retired ministers discuss with each other. But being lost, says Nepo, can be a prelude to a deeper way. Once we admit that we're not sure where life is taking us, then we are ripe for transformation, unquote. Unlike my younger self, I'm not too worried about this place of not knowing. I trust in myself. I trust that my intuition will show me the way. My hope for all of us is that wherever we are in life, we'll trust in ourselves. What matters, says Nepo, is if we can listen to our own unmitigated possibility with our whole being. May we each listen to our intuition with our whole being, and may we trust that it will show us the way. May it be so.